September the 24th. Survival Day is just 3 weeks away. The Stop executive meets at Sheila Schulman's house to plan its campaign. They want to do something that will really catch the attention and the imagination of Montrealers.
Would you all like to hear parts of Drapeau's letter that we got from him? All right.
Who writes to a mayor and who gets answered by mayors and who has press conferences? A local citizens group.
All right, dear Mrs. Schulman, I received your letter of August 26th and have since...
The initial idea has fallen through. They had asked the mayor to close St. Catherine Street, Montreal's main shopping street, to traffic, to mark the day, to turn it into a mall.
This time to recommend to my colleagues on the executive committee to accede to your request. All right, now here's the good part. Moreover, since a similar demonstration has already been organized in New York and Tokyo, it is nothing new and is not likely to catch the imagination of our citizens. If, however, something original could be found, I would be willing to consider it. Montreal has a flair for originality, and a good idea is invaluable. Yours sincerely, Jean Drapeau.
Well, let's think of something original.
Let's think of something original. Okay, that's a good idea.
Drapeau in everything. We could all just take Mary's parent from California.
This is a group of middle-class women right here.
That's original. That's a lot of definition.
Yeah.
That's original.
Who are trying hard to do something, but they're a little afraid of crossing a line.
The original idea, sort of came to me as I was going in town on the bus.
Now, before we start this tour, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Nick. We'll be together for 2.5 hours, and I hope you will enjoy the tour of Montreal.
And I was passing by and seeing all this obvious pollution that I would see because I'm sensitized to it. And I was thinking of the bus tours, the way that they point out with the little...
To the left, the Sun Life Insurance Company of Canada. During World War II, the valuables of England were stored in the vaults of this building for safekeeping, even the crown jewels. Nobody knew about it till after the war. The wealth of England was here. And as we crossed
the beauties of Montreal, but if we could have the same kind of thing, only be a pollution bus tour.
Who is going to pay for this?
The Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce.
Drapeau's been having this 3-day conference, and a good many of the sessions have been closed-door kind of things. How does this idea strike you that the bus tour would kind of be a counter-symposium sort of thing, where we, in contrast to his closing the doors, we open everything up. And we say, he closes the doors and closes the facts away. Here they are. We're opening them up to the public.
Well, I'll tell you, the one thing I'm afraid of is that industry may close the doors on us, too. And I think a possible problem if we publicize the fact of this tour to a great extent, which I think we may have to do, industry may just not clean out their boiler that day, and we can pull up and suddenly the smokestack isn't emitting the usual effluent at all. And perhaps one way of dealing with that problem is to get we could have someone from one of our local chapters, hopefully, who might live there, or some other citizen who is affected daily by this pollution, and have them confront the manager.
Confront the manager and say, do you?
I don't think you can use these kind of tactics of attacking a company or confronting a company during a bus tour. I think this you do in the courts when you have evidence. Now, Stop's got a very good name now, but it has been struggling against the feeling that you're a lot of housewives and you're sitting at home having good ideas about pollution, but you don't really know the facts.
When we start saying we're just housewives, we can't get this sort of technical information, that's wrong, because we have got it in the past, and it's quite easy. All you have to do is a little digging.
We're thinking of the polluter as a criminal, right?
Mm-hmm.
We haven't the right to accuse somebody of robbery ourselves. We have laws.
I know what you're talking about, the bad image that we might have, but I think that the fact that Stop is a woman's group, but which we really are not, we're a front organization, because behind us we have so much technical consultants and so forth who are helping us.
Male.
Male. Now, the thing is that if we could have on the bus, people like, let's say, Prevost, or some of our other people, like my husband, for example, who would be able to be nominated.
In the kitchen, myself and Larry Schulman, Sheila's husband.
Oh, yeah, they meet here regularly. I listen in on them all the time.
Yeah. What do you think's happening here tonight?
Well, really, the whole thing changed when that word confrontation came up. That's the point when I think they started to turn off a little bit. This is a terrific bunch. They've done so much in such a short time. But each time they stretch themselves a little further, it gets scary. And this confrontation issue has been running through right from the beginning. And unless they at times deal with it directly, openly, and honestly, it can block them.
The reaction so far of people?
Not bad. I think it's pretty good. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm pleased. I don't really know what to expect because I don't know your group, you know.
You've got some reservations.
No, I haven't, no.
Oh, I think it's great.
Do you?
Yeah, I really do.
You think it's going to go?
Oh, I think they are very excited about it.
September the 28th. Today they see a student, Ken Webb, who has collected data this summer past on Montreal polluters. They hope for a file of flagrant villains, nicely spaced on a 2-hour itinerary.
I have a list here of companies in the Montreal area that have been polluting the air. It's a list of roughly 55 industries. While you're out there, you'd also have to say that these companies have been doing something. Not necessarily enough, but, you know, say what they've been doing and then say what more would need to be done. Well, actually, you have to have a starting point and an ending point, right? Probably the same place, so it would be something of a round trip. So
Ken Webb is cautious. A bus tour that is solid, educational, not a headline-grabbing stunt. And maybe that's good.
Can you let us have a list of industries with the information you have?
it's got quite a few listed on it. I've got checks, well, you can just look at it. So I've got checks next to the ones that are particularly bad and that you could count on. You know to be there.
Pollution.
Right. You could count on to use them when you need them.
I wonder how it would be if we perhaps went out in a car one day this week and go around your suggested route.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to do it, because it's kind of hard to tell until you're actually, you know, doing a trial run.
Yeah.
What's going to be used. Also, we might go along the river to try to find a few places, you know, a few good water pollution areas. Do you have any of that information?
We're talking with someone else at the U of M today whose whole business is water and water treatment, so maybe we can get some of that information from him.
Yeah.
With a list of air polluters in hand, they must now discover what is going into the river. So they lay siege to the scientists in their citadel on the hill.
Are you familiar with our group? STOP, Society to Overcome Pollution? Yes. And we have a project idea for Survival Day, which is coming up in October 14th.
Pollution bus to acquaint people with the problems of pollution in Montreal. And we need help, I think, in deciding which areas would be good ones to visit.
Your work is in the area of water pollution, is that right?
Yes, I'm connected with some work related to water pollution, but I'm not really in the field of pollution itself. I'm working as a chemist and trying to correct pollution on a long-term basis.
Yeah. We'd like to stop at some of the sewage outlets. And I think some of the information we might need would be around exactly what is coming out. You know, what's in the water. Do you have any information on the content of our drinking water?
Well, no, not exactly.
Are you optimistic that the problems of pollution will be dealt with in time enough? I mean,
Yes, I'm confident, first of all, because I think that pollution is a reversible process. The question is, as Prime Minister Trudeau said, that it's really the quality of life we want. We may want more goods, or we may decide that pollution is an urgent problem, and that money has to go to fight pollution.
Government isn't going to move first, isn't that right? That the government will really give to the people what the people ask for. And so until people are willing to make a sacrifice, nothing is really
houses of Sheila's garden suburb shun the undisciplined streets and turn inward to semi-private grass.
And we suddenly realized we didn't know what we were asking them, and that the other two people in the group hadn't had any say in things, and that what we needed was really to sit down and talk about how we were going to go from here, to make a list of the jobs that we had to do, and get people to do them, so that everybody would know what was going on. And I think after this morning we'll feel much better about that.
Too big.
Okay. The first thing I thought we have to do is make a list of the jobs that have to be done, or the things that we have to look into. Now, I've made a list here, but just to add to them or see if you can think of any others. The first one is the technical resources, where we're going to get our help. The next is the publicity involving who's on the bus, how do we get in contact with them. The next thing was the arranging of the bus and where the money was going to come from for this. And the next is the itinerary, tour director.
How is this bus on pollution?
Well, actually, this is a 1970 General Motors bus. We received it about 5 months ago, and it has an anti-pollution device on it. All of our new buses do have them. They're made in Hamilton, Ontario, and they have anti-pollution devices on the buses. They supposedly cut down up to 80% of the normal pollution that's given off by buses. You have to take it. It's not optional. It comes with the bus.
Yes.
There's no choice.
Well, it's a good thing.
And I think we need them anyway to help the pollution our buses cause, as well as cars causing it.
Don't lose yourself in the church, because I have lost one here 3 weeks ago, and when I came to Mass here last Sunday morning, I recognized my passenger. He was right under the crucifix. He became a saint, so be careful. All back in the same bus, bus number 804.
Peter Harper.
September the 30th, back to the University of Montreal.
Il connaît aussi un peu la pollution. Il a travaillé dans un laboratoire de M. Heinz à Waterloo, qui est un spécialiste des questions de pollution. Alors.
Oh, that's really good. We've been looking for specialists for days now.
To give you an idea of why we're here. We're from STOP, which is Society to Overcome Pollution. Anyway, we have an organization throughout the Montreal Island. We have about 1,500 members at this point. And we're concerned right now with water pollution. That's one of the areas we're working on specifically, and we're looking for some help.
We wouldn't tend to do things like that.
You wouldn't?
No, because we work, we're in the biology department, are primarily interested in clean waters for the moment. We want to know what a non-polluted stream looks like first, or non-polluted lake, because all this basic work hasn't been done.
Before you can say, if I say that, let's say, in a really polluted river, there's such and such organism, and I don't know what there was when it was clean, or what a river that's clean looks like, I mean, there's no basis to compare.
Do you think that this kind of thing should be left within the scientific field, or do you think that citizens groups ought to be clamoring after this kind of stuff? Where do you think we would fit in?
Well, I'm sure if people complain, the government will finally do something. But,
do you think so?
It's the public that have done a lot of the pollution.
That's
right. Most of the public are unwilling to pay for any cleanup of this pollution.
Mm-hmm.
He's willing to spend any kind of money for recreational purposes, but he doesn't want to spend money to clean up the environment.
Personally, I'm spending the expense on my life right now as far as this pollution business is concerned is tremendous.
I know, but you're going to have to pay a lot more.
But I wonder, after all of this, if you think that we're excited or concerned out of proportion, if we're, kind of beating against a wall that doesn't need it.
No, I think there are problems, that's for sure. But the extent of the problem is really hard to grasp.
Certain kinds of cutbacks have to be made irregardless, whether or not we know. Mercury to me sounds like a chemical that I don't want to sit around and drink. Is feeling
the government still doesn't know what it does to human beings.
But they're still...
Well, but the very fact...
They know what it does to fish.
No, they don't.
Well, the fish are dying, right?
No, they're not. They're accumulating, but they're not dying.
Then why? Just last week, did they take away the right of these fishermen to fish in in the St. Lawrence River because of the mercury content in the eels.
This is all pressure all of a sudden on mercury. People pressure, group pressure. But without knowing what the effects are going to be. And I'm not sure this is very good.
Even when all the, in terms of maybe cutting back.
Do we have
rather
to
than-
wait those years? Do we have to wait till we have the results of all the tests?
I mean, Stuart
before
just
we
started
restrict it?
drinking, right? I mean,
Do you think the government takes any steps to kind of smooth things over and cover it up and make it seem not quite so bad? They're kind of afraid. They're afraid to let people be concerned.
These are really loaded questions.
yeah, well, this one may be, you're right.
The more that the public becomes aware of these problems and the more that they think about them, the more action we're going to get.
There are definite steps you think that people can take.
Yes,
In other words, there are things that people can do. But you'd like, not on such a grandiose scale as outlawing the dumping of mercury into our rivers, saying that industry must recycle their mercury.
The tour is now less than 2 weeks away, and all they have in hand is Ken Webb's list and a fair deal on the bus.
They're giving us a rate of $10 an hour instead of $15 for their 49-passenger bus. And the other one was Murray Hill, and they have this elaborate and fancy bus, which they would have been just thrilled to have filmed. The idea of, getting the cameramen down around their garage just made them start rubbing their hands. But their bus costs $20 an hour.
Wouldn't they cut it down?
That's cut. That's 20, 25 cut down to 20.
So it's $10 an hour, minimum of 3 hours. So that's a minimum of $30 each day.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's still not bad. I didn't think at all.
They still lack a tour director, a panel of experts, and a finalized route for the bus to ride. In other words, practically everything. But in spite of time pressure, they've canceled tonight's meeting so that Sheila can hear Barry Commoner, the famous American ecologist, at McGill. At the press conference beforehand, there are no press, just Sheila and Larry.
Which is just a group of concerned citizens, really.
You have to have the information, so you're making the right move first. In other words, you've really got to know what the facts are. And that isn't really your responsibility, it's the responsibility of the scientific community. And my feeling is that the university scientists have a responsibility to you. Then you take the facts, and the decisions that have to be made are not scientific ones, they're social.
I don't think any more need to be said, Professor Commoner. You can see that you are indeed a welcome guest.
Go back to U.S. We're going to take a back on your ball. And all this bullshit about pollution is not true. The pollution is in the head of people like you, in the head of your bosses, Nixon and everybody else.
I'd like to talk about something I know about. I suggest that you incorporate that into your political strategy. Now, the problem that I want to talk about is the cause of the pollution crisis.
What we're seeing here is the fact that pollution represents a hidden cost of our productive enterprises which does not show up in the account books, and the day of reckoning has come. Now, these are decisions which no scientist can make. These are social, political decisions. And it seems to me that the only way in which we can make them, and they're going to be deep and serious, is to see to it that the facts are available to every citizen, because after all, it's the citizen who has a right to make the political decisions. That's still true in our country.
The population, 2,600,000. 65% of this island is French-Canadian, 21% is English.
During the summer just over, STOP had help on another project from the Department of Health. So it is not strange that they would like its head, Jean Merrier, to be on the bus.
We're going to try and see some of the more polluted areas of the city.
I see.
And we wondered if you could provide us with some information that might be helpful on this tour?
I think such a tour pointing out localized sources of pollution to the public would be a kind of condemnation by the public of these sources before the responsible parties have had the chance to be heard. We are not free to tell you to point out individual sources of pollution until the cases has been studied. Otherwise, we would judge these cases beforehand.
How do you feel about the tour? Putting some people in a bus, and rather than taking them around and seeing, the very nice parts of the city, showing them some that might not be so nice.
I told you my impression is to condemn people before their case is studied.
Would you? We'd like to invite you to be on the bus. We're going to send you an invitation. I realize it's
right after you, Mr.
a very strange kind of thing, but I think that you could be very helpful, merely because you're familiar with all of the existing laws, on the books, and you could make people on the bus familiar with them. The new incinerator would be one thing that we could see.
I'm not sure it would be so informative.
In what way?
Unless, as we say, we include some special visits, some stops where people would look at what is being done.
What is it? I promised him it. Oh dear. I promised him the itinerary, which may have implications. He'll see it ahead of time. And he may be able to speak to the industries that we plan to visit.
We don't have to give him the itinerary.
Well, all right. I said I would send it to him, and his acceptance of the invitation
give him a map and draw a red line.
Because this was his objection when I said, would you please come on the bus? He said that he doesn't know where he's going, and he'd like to be able to see where he's going.
He really wanted that tour to show the highlights of the anti-pollution effort, and
we're going to do more than we originally were, in that vein. We were not originally going to show that much good stuff.
Well, now we decided now that we're going to.
This may switch it. If he really wants to, this may get him on the trip.
If the trip is still on. Right now, there's a possibility that it will be cancelled.
Underneath us, there is a promenade. Under the name of Villa Maria, there is 70 stores for men, women, and children. Also 18 restaurants, a dish to satisfy every taste, and also 3 theater.
Sally and I went through all those interviews the other day, and I came home feeling really flat and sort of out of it about this whole thing. And I wonder what the rest of you thought about it.
The only reason I agreed to be on the committee was I thought it was a good idea. There are some projects which leave you with the yawns, but I always thought this was...
From one to the other, plunking ourselves into the chair and saying, what can you do for us without
I'll tell you, we've got such a short period of time to do this.
Yeah, but I'm sick of that objection, though. We're always getting people, everything you want to do. How can you do anything when you've only got 2 weeks? You need 6 months. Really, when you come down to the actual practical things that we're trying to do we really need 6 months, or is it just easier to have it?
Except that when we've got...
But they always go through this. It's like growing up. They go 3 steps forward, and when they get too far forward, they have to take a step back.
It's not gospel. It's down in the valley. Is it?
Sheila and Kay are out with Ken Webb to check the route. Everyone is glad to be out of the talk and into the essential muck.
Yeah. So what do they do here?
They make Coke.
Are you bilingual?
Yes, I am.
Well, that's wonderful. Because we weren't sure if you were, and we were thinking of asking someone else, maybe to help out with the French. But that's terrific.
Mouvement contre la pollution dans la province de Québec.
Meanwhile, Anne has been sent to trap a tour director. Rod Blaker of Radio CJAD is the mark.
Anti-pollution groups, in our own slightly bumbling way, we seem to be more active.
What type of pollution do you involve, or does the group involve itself in?
Oh, what is it? Look at that.
Yeah. That foul-looking, miserable
And there's
stuff.
more. Now, that's all DOSCO, eh?
We talk about we talk about ecology in general. We started off on the phosphate kick, and then we kind of widened out. You could say that we've attained our first objective, which was to get a ban on phosphates in detergents.
Do you have what I might call an information officer, a public relations officer?
We have
a group of
publicity.
individuals, or how do you work it? How do you contact the media?
We found the press and the media extremely helpful. They may swear behind their hand, you know, there's bloody women. There's women again. This bus tour, what we've come to you for is to ask you if you'd be a guide, moderator, or whatever, on this bus tour.
You haven't shocked me yet. Go ahead.
No? Oh, that's fine. We don't want to embarrass the city. We may embarrass the city, but we don't. That's not our intent.
It won't do the city any harm to be embarrassed for a change.
No, but, you know, they'll be much more cooperative if we just present things as they are.
Well, the first thing I would say to you is that I have no desire, on my part, to antagonize anybody.
No, I'm sure you won't.
But equally, I haven't the slightest bit of concern if someone chooses to become antagonized, so long as I'm right in what I'm saying.
Good.
So, with that in mind, if you're trying to soft pedal something, you should probably get somebody else. If you're prepared to have something spoken or said as it is, to use the famous expression, tell it like it is, then, you know, maybe I'm your man.
I think you are.
But I'm not the soft pedal man.
Yeah,
Lovely orange stuff. But the main one, there's those 5 stacks that we looked at before coming around.
Right, and those 5 stacks are the ones that they're supposed to be putting equipment in for right now.
Well, I don't think we need to worry that they've got that equipment already installed.
Okay. Have you laid out the
route?
The route?
No, that's being done at the moment. We, again, we don't want to publicize it beforehand because it is possible, you know, to turn your chimney off. You know, well, I don't know if they would, but supposing Company X heard that they were going to be on our fancy tour, they might inject a bit of steam in their black smoke, this kind of thing.
Right, but you have a route in mind. You will have a route laid out.
And there will be a text. You don't have
And
to
you will have,
secret, but
and you will have selected points of interest, which presumably have some shock value.
hopefully.
Well, you seem to be.
No. Well, this
You
is.
seem to be perhaps a little uncertain as to exactly what you want to achieve in this.
Well, that would be, according to the company itself, they say the total dust load, which wouldn't say, but the total lead content is 3 micrograms per cubic meter. We'd have to work on that to see how dangerous that might be. Maybe ask Ed Farkas about it.
You have a bus route which will take X number of stops, right? I'm going to assume that it has 20 stops on it. And at each stop, you will expect of me that I am competent and able to discuss intelligently what's happening in terms of pollution at that particular area. But on your side, you have a volume of documentation to bring to me that is going to require of me that I prepare myself for many hours. I have to be able, if someone stands up on that bus and tells me that the SO2 content, the sulfur dioxide content, of imported Venezuelan or Middle Eastern oil, which comes in through Montreal, as opposed to making use of Canadian Western oil, which has a lower sulfur dioxide content, why don't we run a Trans-Canada pipeline across, is an argument, into Montreal. It's been discussed. And I claim, for example, that we're stupid to be importing Venezuelan and Middle Eastern oil, which has a larger sulfuric content, and someone hits me with answers. It isn't only that I can disagree with them, I may not even understand the man.
Yeah, I know.
What are you going to do about it?
Don't worry, we would have a strong backup team. I know, for instance, this thing about the oil. Someone said,
I've chosen one question out of a potential 20,000 questions which could come. Now, that doesn't mean that on the 12th or the 11th I suddenly get faced with a ton of documents. Like I need them fast.
I know.
So you're going to provide me, the printed authorities, for which I expect yards of material, stop by stop, all the history of each stop, what the company does, what it has been doing, who its people are, what their problems are, what statements they have made with respect to their own problems, what statements you make with respect to their problems, and verification of the statements you make by accepted authorities. We're going to have a trial at each location.
Oh, sure.
The stuff out, like,
Sure, that list I have is companies that are breaking the law.
do we know exactly what laws they are?
Yes, it's the bylaw 9. Sure.
That takes care of it. Okay, good.
Right, so we've got, just the color of the thing. I mean, this one, you can see, obviously, that's a lot darker than number 1 on the ring of the smoke chart.
we have bylaw number 9. Now, if we just base things on bylaw number 9, even on this little thing, you can go around and you can look at chimneys and you can look at this and, as simply as that.
Anybody can do that. And
I agree, but we've got to take
with you to the point where I'm continually saying to you now, the breakthrough will come when the media are prepared to accept specific charges and put them out to the public, all right, on specific companies.
Yes, I agree.
Now, what you're asking me to do is probably hit not less than 10 to 20 of our major advertisers. We'll do it.
Believe you me, we started on this thing, when was it? A week yesterday. And since then, Sheila Schulman and Sally Bauchner, who were the chairman and vice chairman or whatever, they've met with Jean Marier.
You know that you're not ready.
No,
It's
the problem
possible.
is if you wait until you're ready, you know,
I think
survival
you have
is
a good
coming.
idea, and if you want the idea to be as effective as possible, then it means
Really well prepared.
you've got to prepare yourself.
I would say, you better see what we have, to present you with, because you may think that it's just not adequate.
Okay, well, let's get off then. I don't think we'll be using this one.
But there is this one new one that's supposed to be quite
Right.
worth seeing.
We stop now, the way we've always been doing, and saying we can't do this because we haven't had 6 months preparation and we don't have 67 people on this, and just not going to equal the D-Day landings. We're never going to get anything done. We can do what he wants. We've got to make our minds to it. I see no reason why we can't. We're not to be intimidated because he says he wants documentation. Of course we're going to get documentation.
What is the problem? I'm not sure. I don't see anything wrong so far. Well, he just wants to be sure that we're not just rank amateurs. Okay, I want to know that too. What are my qualifications? I've got 3 children, and I can paint.
Well, it's very easy for people to suggest to amateurs in any field that they're incompetent, because, of course, this is the little feeling you harbor inside you anyway. But I don't see that we're incompetent to fulfill the requests, because, as Sheila says, they're exactly the same things that we ourselves would want.
And we do have the data.
All the information that I've been gathering comes from the companies themselves. It says what they're putting out and what they're doing about it.
Good.
So, this has to be valid documentation.
Yeah, I think he'll do a very fine job. But maybe he's determined to do a much more thorough job, then maybe we could settle for someone else who wouldn't be so demanding.
It's our project. It's not his. Yeah. And so I think before it takes place, we obviously have to sit down and explain to him exactly what we want.
We just seem to be getting over our heads. Everything you read. I didn't hear this man Commoner last night. I was just too tired. I read something in Dasein or something written by him. And certainly, you just think of the problem and you think, my God, if we're all going to go anywhere, why don't I go home to my children? Really?
Well, it was really a tough morning, yeah.
Well, it's okay. He's accusing you of being an amateur, and that's all. You are.
Which is true.
Good girl. Good girl.
Why don't you take him?
Hey, he was terribly nice.
Before you go.
What?
Why don't you take him to sit down before you go?
No, I'm fine. That's me. I'm kind of like that. But, no.
You have to guard you the trouble. Okay, do you have a car?
Yes.
Okay.
What happened?
Oh, boy, it was quite an interesting day.
What went on?
Anne had her interview this morning with Blaker.
Yeah.
And he's really a tough guy.
You turned it down?
No, he's willing to do it, but he has very definite criteria that we must fill before he'll accept.
What does he want?
He wants documented information on all of these industries.
And I don't think that's such a bad idea.
Well, that's true, but it was a pretty upsetting thing for Anne because she really felt that we weren't going to be able to do this.
I feel, as does Anne, that Blaker may be too demanding. Sheila and Sally don't agree. So the next day at Kay's, I play the Blaker tape, hoping, I suppose, to keep their options open.
Described as an anti-pollution backlash. In other words, we want to keep reasonable.
You are setting up a trial, okay? There is an accused in this trial, or a defendant, if you like, okay? You are asking me to be the prosecutor.
True.
Fine. If you want me to be the prosecutor, you must provide me with the proper material to take the charge before the jury and the court, which is the court of public opinion, because you're using the media. Right? Then you must firstly give me the sufficient information, secondly give me expert witnesses, and thirdly provide the defendant with the right to answer any accusations we bring against him.
He obviously has the wrong picture of the truth, right? He sees something that just isn't going to happen.
Yeah,
as far as I see it.
I think, I mean, if you want to use the word trial, that's perhaps not completely inappropriate, but it is inappropriate in the sense that it suggests something which is a whole lot more formal and has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and complete.
That's just not what we're trying to do.
But in any case, I mean, if what you're going to do is drive by Dosco and say, I am accusing you of having smoke coming out of your chimney that's darker than it should be, and what are my grounds for accusing you of this? As I have two eyes in my head and I can see it. Okay? End of trial.
I think what we really have to do is go to him, tell him what we see the purpose of the bus trip as, exactly what his role is going to be and exactly what he's going to be saying, and ask him if he'll do it in this way, and if he won't, then that's the end of that, and we can start pursuing someone else.
We catch Blaker on the run between broadcasts.
I'm still a little uncertain as to what your goal is, okay? And once you've defined that, then I would like to know the specifics of how you're going to achieve that goal. Okay? Now, all I'm doing is suggesting. It's not my bag to tell you how to run your thing. I'm saying if your goal is citizen aware of rights, then one of the most suitable, one of the most effective means of telling a citizen what his rights are, and to show them. Show examples. Now, the question is, this is considerably away from the plan you had. I'm not promoting this plan, but if what you said is the case, and that the goal is citizen awareness of his rights, then the plan you have right now needs to be reviewed with that in mind. Don't you really want the citizens to start pouring in the complaints? Isn't this your goal? You said make the citizens aware of their rights. Mm-hmm. Well, then, if they have the right of complaint, isn't really what you want them to do to complain?
Indeed.
Okay? Now, when you're dealing with the media, everybody's busy. I mean, there's people running around being kidnapped, and there are planes landing here and there, and you only get so much coverage. A general, no-punch story is not going to get as much coverage as individual dramatic punch. Okay? Well, then, if you want the media, tailor your plan of attack to suit the media.
And what are you suggesting?
I would suggest that you engineer, stage manage, specific actions by specific citizens at specific locations, and in some instances have the services of a lawyer who will take test cases. And he'll give a little lecture, and, CTV and CBC television will go to their minds with joy.
I think we've already agreed on that. As it stands now, are you willing to do the job that we've kind of outlined here?
Yeah, look, I'm going to try and answer you, and it sounds like a cop-out, but please don't take it that way. As far as I am concerned, you are not yet ready to proceed.
All right. Will you stop being such a jerk?
Blaker has switched from a series of trials to citizen testimony.
All right. Come on, let's try and make a decision of some sort. Do you think that, agreed that we're going to do this, do you think that we should have the flyers go out ahead of time?
To get such testimony, citizens will have to know the bus is coming to their street.
Not liking the uncertainty. I don't like the uncertainty of not announcing it ahead of time at all, if you really want to talk to people.
What do you think?
Huge drag.
Okay, let's turn here, right on Grand Alley.
Grand Alley, right. Okay, now this is where we're going to, well, it's not going to be right here, but it'll be around the corner. We'll start distributing the pamphlets.
Giving out flyers seems a simple matter, but Sheila and Sally feel that Blaker is pushing them into confronting citizens who will not be pleased to testify against neighboring industries. They expect hostility and have put off as long as possible contacting citizens.
See, I think this is really going to be good because of the
Oh,
background.
boy, yeah, really, it does look good.
In fact, the few citizens met face to face are friendly, and 2 actually agreed to be on the bus. Now, with the form of the tour emerging, they can get tough with Blaker.
The itinerary differs in no way from the one that I showed you on Tuesday. The only thing that we're going to do is we're going to pass out leaflets on a certain block in the East End near the refineries, telling people the bus is coming around, what time it'll be, and asking them to meet with us. At which point, when the bus arrives there, we'll get off and have a discussion with these people, giving them the Rinkelmann chart, telling them about the bylaw, about how they can complain, and
getting their impressions.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make it very brief. I don't think you're ready. I have some question in my mind as to whether you're ever going to be ready. I don't think you're treating the thing with the degree of planning and organization which it requires. I think you're confused about your goals. But perhaps to your relief, I'll tell you that persistency does seem to have some value. Yes, I will do the job. But I do so with great fear, because you can come out of this under what I'm looking at now. You can do more damage to stop than you can do good. And
I'm surprised that you see that.
Exactly what...
You have here an outline which involves a tour director saying certain types of things or going into certain types of discussion, and I don't have any information to do the job. Are you going to supply this?
Yes, we are, and we deliver that to you tomorrow.
The script.
The script, plus we have a great deal of information on the incinerator, on the Laval Industrial Association that you could...
Okay, well, I'm just going to sound critical, and I don't want to be critical, okay? I'm interested, I want it to succeed. You're putting my colleagues on the bus. My neck, in some senses, is on the line, and I certainly want to contribute as much as I can, not only in the sense of preserving my own neck, but also in the sense of giving you as good a job as I can. So let's get down to work. We keep meeting and we don't get anything done. We keep just, all I do is sit here and criticize, which is not very helpful at all.
Thank you very much.
I guarantee you at this point I will be on deck. Okay? Can I keep this?
Right.
Yes.
Just said
That's your plum.
Thank you, ladies. That's the thing with women. Just a bunch of absolute and total, persistent...
Oh, easy now. We'll get you on camera for this one.
Finagling females who have dithered me to the point where I don't know how to say no.
Say something like that.
So now they have a tour director, a triumph which merits a victory drink at Sally's.
Frankly, he could go and make his own dinner, Well, he was saying that, said after the close of the interview, this is just like a group of women, persistent, finagling, and then I don't know how we continued on. By that time, I decided I was going to turn him off.
Now, do you think, Sheila, that...
We've let ourselves be pushed around a bit.
I think you got to face what Mike is saying, which is saying that you're allowing this to happen. And if you are, you must need it. That's what he's saying.
It's all a one-sided thing. Blaker's just sitting there in his studio. Every time you come in, he says, "Now, ladies, you're not ready." He says it every time. And what do you say? Oh,
Do that.
Yeah, well, you
That's
do.
not true. We say exactly in what way are we not ready.
But you've never called the guy. You've never said, "Listen, what is all this bullshit?" And I can't understand, with all that you have to do, and all the pressure, and all the problem for you to go out of the house every time you go out, how come you spend so much time with Blaker?
I'll tell you why. Because I think we got stuck. Because we got stuck.
Why?
Because we got stuck feeling that we had to have a person with a big name.
The pressure for Blaker is to have somebody professional in the thing.
That's right.
Right?
Exactly.
That's right. So you've taken all kinds of shit from him.
It's almost like
you like being tortured by him, you know. I would have told the guy where to get off.
I don't believe that.
You don't?
That's right. Because there have been that you would have told him to get off, because there have been every idea that he has brought up, you've taken on as your, you know, what you'd like to see done. You know, this whole bit about interviewing citizens, that the press absolutely wouldn't be interested unless we had something like that. Now, I mean, how do we know? And we're very vulnerable as far as that kind of advice goes. Well, how we get? Who's Sheila? Okay. Have you just got one roll of tape?
You better get this on film right now. Sheila.
Blaker suggested that it would be fitting to end the tour with drinks for the press at the Queen Elizabeth.
9 o'clock.
Now, without warning, he has cancelled the hotel room.
I have no idea why he did it, but I told Kay, and I don't care what it costs, we're going to that room.
Down here, okay?
My name. And then I told her that I didn't care.
Yeah, Mr. Blaker. Yeah, this is Sheila Schulman. Hi. We've had some word that you canceled the Queen Elizabeth this morning. Yeah. Thank you. Bye-bye.
What did he say?
That he thought the whole thing was going to be canceled anyway. So that, you know, just to skip it. And this is at 9:30 after he spoke to me about getting in touch with the reporters and so forth.
It's survival day. The bus materializes this morning as a sleek, riveted monster, and the tour will go on, Blaker or no Blaker. If he's not here by 11, Kay will do the job. And they do have scientific experts on almost all forms of pollution.
What do we look like? This bus here? I'm developing all sorts of muscles.
Has the mayor of Montreal not referred to this type of organization as living room technicians or experts or something along that line?
Oh, well, I hadn't heard that one, but, well, I don't know that we're any more concerned than most people. We have perhaps more time to put into this kind of activity.
But would a mother not be a little more concerned because she doesn't want her children growing up in a polluted world generally?
And until you feel that, then, you know, people just aren't going to demand action.
Our glass pollution, Bob in there, now, please.
What is it? What is this? Survival Day.
Ladies and gentlemen, stop. STOP stands for the Society to Overcome Pollution, and you're invited today on this tour in order that you hopefully may assist in that exact goal of the society. We're going to be covering various interest areas in terms of air and water pollution in Montreal. I think the main point, and I'm going to read from a prepared document for that purpose, which I find very accurate, is that an informed public is needed in order to put the necessary pressure on those responsible for researching, planning, financing, and enforcing the control of all forms of environmental pollution. In more formal terms, the powers won't act if nobody is holding a blowtorch to their backsides. Is that what you wanted? The area we're now approaching along the south side of the Lachine Canal is a good one in which to apply the Ringelmann smoke chart to which I was referring a moment ago. There are a large number of industries around this district. We're going to provide two examples. One is Dosco, and the other is LaSalle Coke.
We arrive at the first stop and are relieved to see that both Dosco and LaSalle Coke are belching beautifully, and thus by Ringelmann breaking bylaw number 9. How sad that number 9, which has sharp teeth, really bites.
Company behind you is Dosco. As you can see, there's a considerable amount of smoke coming out and heading in that direction, and you've probably had a couple of whiffs of it. It's not too nice.
How often does that come out like that?
All the time.
The company has said, and I have a letter here from the plant manager, the startup of the new system is scheduled for October 15th, 1970, and this system is supposed to take care of 95% of their pollution.
We have that fume there that you're almost choking. There's days that you can't come out at all. Your clothes, you bring your clothes and they're black.
That Dosco building, and it's really struck me. I never thought it was that bad.
We're passing along to Cary Boulevard, and we've just been through the lower part, the sunken part of the expressway. But the level of carbon monoxide on the under part, the lower part of the expressway is 7% higher than it is on the upper parts, and 20% higher than it is on any other street in the city of Montreal. You're just not getting it
in garbage disposal. Well, it might be of interest to you that the average municipal taxpayer in Canada pays about $1.50 per month to have its garbage taken away. So it's hardly surprising that we have garbage lying all over this country.
Of course, I'm very ignorant to what is going on. I have to admit that, you know. But I mean, it's
7 things that are sampled, and some of them, like carbon monoxide, are only sampled at 1 station. Others, like H2S, at 3 stations. What we came up at the end of our report as conclusions was that the stations weren't numerous enough.
Repeat that. Right now, 500 million gallons per day of sewage is thrown up into the river.
This kind of tour should be open to everyone. And let people come and see this instead of seeing Expo.
Dr. Richard Nelson, president of Le Mouvement de Résistance à la Pollution. We're involved in actually politicizing the problem of pollution in Quebec. In other words, making it the responsibility of the politicians. This kind of atmosphere just can't support nature. You don't have any trees growing around here. It's not fit for...
Well, I don't know. I mean, I had a very bad cold in '67, and I still have it, but every winter, yeah, never got rid of it.
What were you saying about your children?
Most of them have respiratory problems, partly due to inhalants. You know, it's also pollens and grasses and things like that as well, but they're definitely, I mean, and what you inhale is in the air, isn't it?
Can we see your house from here?
Yes, it's that one right there, the red one.
This woman's story will be written up by Norm Pascoe for tomorrow's Star.
Problems have you had living in this area? And she said, well, I had a son who would have been 25 today if he'd survived. And she said, we've been living in this area for 18 years now, and he's died from asthma. And she said, each of my other 6 children have respiratory problems. So I said, okay, stop.
What did you... I want to know what you thought of the trip.
Drinks await us in the recaptured hotel room.
I wanted to know what you thought of the trip today.
What I thought of the trip.
I'm glad he's had a few drinks since the time we asked him the first time.
Well, I think you people did a very good job.
Thank you, Mr. Blaker. Okay, now we get to the criticism.
That's straight for Blaker. I mean, you know.
Someone who is perhaps something on what I would call a publicity expert or a public relations expert. You almost want a stunt man, a gimmick man. And I don't mean that in a cheap sense. You're looking for a person who can see immediately in a situation what dramatization of that situation is available so that the news media can turn around and say, this is an example of pollution.
PR is the art of communicating, being able to communicate. I feel that STOP is communicating and has been communicating. I hear from the people that they've appointed to handle public relations for them, or publicity.
Norm Pascoe, the Montreal Star reporter, who has given STOP such good coverage on all its projects.
Way, but it comes across very sincerely.
You know, what I'm not looking for a PR in the normal sense of the word, which would improve the PR, the image of STOP.
They're proceeding in their own way, and they're groping, and they're trying to find an effective way of getting across to the public, and without realizing it, they've been very effective, in my opinion.
No, I'm in perfect agreement. We're talking methodology only.
So, yes.
I want nothing to do with the slick crowd. You know, don't come near me with the guy who's got all the media answers, who's got all the fast, rapid stuff. You know, I don't need that.
How do you both react to the fact that we're a group, not all women, but the majority being women? Does that affect you in any way?
Yeah, you do have a problem. Serious one.
I agree.
But your problem is not the rest of the world thinking that you're women. The problem is that you're uptight about being women. I've heard you more often go on about that, and it makes no damn difference in the world to me or to anybody else. Well, what's your problem?
No, we didn't say that.
What's your problem?
We were just referring back.
What's the topic even up for?
Because we're thinking of your comments. Because a few times during discussions with you, you referred to us in this very general way, kind of swooping women all together and saying this is so typical.
I don't recall having said this is typical of women, no.
Oh, well,
Absolutely true.
I think we get, well, this will come out in the rushes, no doubt, but we've got you on film, Mr. Blinger. But it went something like persistent, finagling
I said you're a
women.
bunch of amateurs. And, you know, you're disorganized, you don't know what your goals are, you don't know where you're going, but there's one thing I'll say for you, you have all the persistency of a group of women, and that's great.
Since the bus tour, STOP continues persistent. They've built a small geodesic dome that will take their displays to shopping centers. 10,000 shoppers' guides they've handed out. And legal action against persistent polluters. They're thinking of that too. It may yet come to trials.
Because I basically feel STOP would be a lot better off if it had many, many, many more men